good, Crossover family? Hey, the entire month of August, we've been going through this series, How to Learn to Better Hear from God. It's been an amazing series. So I'm actually outside right now, out here at University Mall, which is now being rebranded as Uptown Mall. And did you know that, like, even when you're outside in the city, like, you can still hear God. If you're in the park, you could hear God. If you're in your car, if you're in the middle of a conversation, if you're watching a movie, if you're listening to some music, you don't just have to be at church or just be in your prayer closet. God can speak to us in all kinds of places. We just have to learn to lean in and listen. And so this entire month we've been talking about how can we be better at that. In the first week we talked about how can we learn to recognize His voice. We looked at John chapter 10 and where it describes Jesus as the good shepherd and we're His sheep. And so we as His sheep, we learn to recognize His voice and follow Him, and He knows us by name. The second week we looked at, well, how do we recognize His voice? Well, that's by learning to spend time with Him. So we went over to John chapter 15, and the illustration there switches up from Jesus being a shepherd to really being like the vine. And we're called to be the branches, and we got to stay connected to Him. And when we spend time with Him, that's when we can recognize His voice. And so we talked about this word called abide, and learning to abide. And what that really means is learning to just remain, not to fade out, because we're good at doing something for a little while and then many times we fade out, right? Not just to fade out, but to stay on point and remain in God's presence. And the last week we talked about, well, what happens when we abide and when we recognize God's voice? There's incredible results. So we talked about the results last week. We talked about the benefits, the bonuses, the fruit. And we talked about how we get forgiveness and we get joy and we get unity and we get answered prayers and we're led by God's Spirit, and there's character transformation. And in our church, there's been so much character transformation that we've seen happen in people's lives. And we told you some stories last week. We love to celebrate the stories of transformed lives when Jesus gets in and starts to remix us and make us who we're called to be. And so last week, the cool thing was we had 110 people, ding, 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 ring the bell. And so we're praying for you guys. If you made a commitment last week to make some changes in the fall of 2019 and to get some new spiritual results. And so many people, they signed up to be part of the 3D growth track, which starts Sunday, September 8th in just 2 weeks. And so maybe you didn't sign up for it yet, there's still an opportunity. Sign up on a connection card, go to the church website, grow this fall. Don't miss out on it. Other people made commitments to spend time with God every day, daily. We all need to be doing that. Some people just said, hey, I'm gonna commit to just show up regularly at church. So if you made a commitment last week, or maybe you're gonna make a commitment today, man, we're praying for you that God will help you follow through and you'll be about it. So here we are. Today is our final week of the series. Here is the culmination, the climax of how to hear from God. And what we're going to talk about today is how do we stay consistent? How do we keep recognizing God's voice and abiding in His presence and getting the fruit and the results? How do we stay consistent with that? And so a couple of months ago, I was in a Bible study with Ed Coble. He was here a couple of weeks ago, and we were doing a study with some business leaders here in the city on how to learn to better abide. It was an amazing study. We met every week for a number of weeks. And the last week, we were told, hey, read Ezekiel chapter 34 and pause for a little bit and see what God speaks to you. And so I remember as I was reading Ezekiel 34, and we started in verse 11 where it talked about God being the good shepherd, like it did in John chapter 10, right? And I was reading through it. It was great stuff. It was connecting with a lot of other stuff that we read. But around verse 20, there was some stuff that really jumped out to me. So check it out. I want to read it to you really quick, starting in verse 20. And it says this. It says, therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. He says, I will surely judge between the fat sheep and the scrawny sheep. For you fat sheep will be, the fat sheep, they pushed and butted and crowded my sick and my hungry sheep. They crowded them, right? And they scattered them to distant lands. So I will rescue my flock and they will no longer be abused. I will judge between one animal of the flock and the other. And so the crazy thing is I'm reading this with this study group on a Tuesday, and I had just gotten back from New York City the day before. And when I was in New York City, this was a couple of months ago, back in the spring, I just noticed how there was so many neighborhoods that were totally different than the last time I was there, or different than just a few years ago. They were changed, they were rebuilt, they were gentrified. But the sad thing was, is a lot of people that lived in those neighborhoods, they got pushed out. People with fat pockets came in, and the people with scrawny pockets, they got butted and pushed out, and they got scattered to distant lands. And now they're like far away from where their job is and where their old neighborhood and their family is, and now they gotta drive farther or take a bus or a train. And this is happening in cities all over the country. It's called gentrification, if you haven't heard about it. And it's happening here in Tampa as well. Everywhere we look in cities, there's rebuilding happening. And so, you know what, rebuilding and redevelopment in and of itself, that's not bad, it's great. So right behind me, there's a bunch of construction that's starting. This old mall is now gonna get rebuilt into a thriving place. People are actually gonna live here. There's gonna be residential on here, office buildings, hotels, as well as retail and restaurants. It's exciting what's beginning to happen in our neighborhood. But many times, like it says, those people get pushed out. And unfortunately, we live in a culture where people with money and power, they have the loudest voice in the room. And so people, if they don't have money and power, their voice gets very small and sometimes non-existent, and they can sometimes get run over. And so listen, God loves everybody equally. He loves all his sheep. It even says in this passage, some of his sheep, they got abused. And so you know what? If you're watching this video today, you know what? You probably have somewhat of a voice. You have some influence. And so you have to use that, we have to use that to help our neighbors and the people that are around us that maybe their voice isn't quite as loud as us. And so I know for Crossover Church, we moved to this building that you're sitting in right now, unless you're watching this online somewhere, but we moved into this old Toys R Us building in 2010 when this neighborhood was really rough. It was called Suitcase City. A lot of issues. People are like, you're crazy to move there. I'm like, no, God has called us to move to this neighborhood to rebuild it. That word he gave to us, rebuild. I actually wrote a book about it and came out with an album in 2015 about rebuilding. And so now here we are almost 9 years later that we've been in this building, and we've watched like God use us to help rebuild lives. And now we look around and this neighborhood and our city is beginning to rebuild. And so it's exciting. There's a lot of great things happening. But at the same time, I realized like God has given you a voice. He's given me a voice. He's given our church a voice. And we're called to be a voice for the voiceless and to help people right here in our community, in our neighborhood, to make sure nobody gets pushed out, to make sure everybody has opportunities. And so a couple of years ago, myself and Pastor Christopher were invited to be on the Innovation Partnership Board. And so if you didn't know, the neighborhood around the church now is officially an innovation district. And so we get to sit on this board with other business leaders, executives, CEOs, government leaders, and help shape policy and help shape the way our community is going to be rebuilt. Just this morning, I was in a meeting with the CEO of Busch Gardens. And so God is allowing just some guy like me, a kid that grew up in Philly, to now sit at a leadership table with people that are making major decisions. And I know that God has placed us at the table and in the mix so we can be a voice, that we can make sure as the redevelopment happens in this neighborhood, as the rebuilding happens, that we can empower everybody, and everybody has a chance to be a part of it. And so there's a lot of people in our community, even some people in our church that are struggling. You're going through stuff, man. We want to empower you, and we're creating programs, and there's all kinds of dreams and things we have coming down the road because we want people to be everything that God has called them to be. We want everybody to be a part of the rebuilding that's happening. So when you're spending time in God's presence, He'll speak to you about what you're going through in the season of your life, or what's even going to happen that day. It's incredible. So keep abiding. Even though this series is about to end, stay consistent. And so for a couple more minutes today, we're going to talk to you about some keys to being consistent and how you need to give the paddle of your kayak to God and let Him steer your kayak. What do I mean by that? Well, we got a really cool story that's gonna tie in all this together. And so my wife is gonna break it down for you. So crossover family, give it up for Pastor Lucy.
Woo! Good morning. How you guys doing today? Everybody good? You excited? Listen, we are wrapping up this last series, and today it is not the end, okay? This is just the beginning of what God has for you. And so, yes, he kind of gave it away. I have a paddle in my hand. But before I talk to you about our adventure that we went through this summer, when he told me, or he let me know, I think it was over a month ago, that he wanted me to speak with him regarding consistency and abiding. And for me, right away, I kind of jumped. And I was like, really? Because that's really been my season this year. It's really been a season of abiding in a different way. And so when you continue to grow in God, he takes you to different levels. And so it doesn't get old. There's always something new that he's showing you. And for me, that's what was happening this year. So I kind of jumped and I was like, great, I think I have a message. That's awesome. But God flipped it around and he gave me a completely different message. And the message was about kayaking. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. But when he told me that it was consistency, right, I can be a nerd sometimes. Sometimes I can be a nerd. And so I went to the Bible. And even though I know what consistency is, right, so Bible, and then I have a dictionary, or dictionary.com. But I like to look up other words, right, that mean consistency, because I really want to, get it honed into my head. So you guys have your handouts there. If you have the Crossover app, go to the notes section. You can use that. If you're watching online, awesome. You can take notes as well. So I went to dictionary.com. There was 3 different definitions. You can write these down. The first one is a degree of density, firmness, right, or viscosity. And so an example would be the liquid has the consistency of cream, all right? So one example. Second example is steadfast adherence to the same principles, course, or form. There is consistency in his pattern of behavior, and that really jumped out at me at that point. And then the last one is agreement, harmony, or compatibility, especially correspondence or uniformity among the parts of a complex thing. Consistency of colors throughout the house. And so I want to focus on the word steadfast, or that one definition, steadfast adherence. And then I went as a nerd and I looked up steadfast. And steadfast means that you're fixed in a direction or purpose, unwavering or steadily directed. And at that moment, the word kayak came to my mind. I know it sounds crazy, but the word kayak came into my mind, and I recalled, this was just recently over the summer, our kayak adventure. We went to Puerto Rico for a vacation, and I was visiting family, but it was family, and we wanted to be tourists at the same time and do some fun activities, and so we decided that we wanted to visit in Fajardo, Puerto Rico. Anyone been there before? Okay, a couple of people. All right, the bioluminescent bay. Have you guys heard of that? So this is like a bay, right? Open waters, and it glows in the dark. It's beautiful. I think we have a picture of it. Can we get that picture? And so, see that? Doesn't that look beautiful? So this was night kayaking. You guys been kayaking before? So some of you. Have you been night kayaking? Completely different. So that's what it looked like. And so I did a quick research. I looked up, excursions, and I thought, wow, that looks really cool. And I've always wanted to visit this bay. They have a couple of them in Puerto Rico, but I really wanted to go. And I thought, well, this will work out. But the neat thing was, so as I'm looking at their, promotion and advertisement for it, they said that this is family friendly. So I said, this is perfect, because now we can all go as a family. My cousins went, our kids went, 5 years and up. And I said, oh, that's cool, but we decided to leave my niece at home, even though she meets the age requirement. And so we said, okay, and it's a two-person kayak, so 2-seater kayak. And for me, I felt more comfortable with that. I was okay with that. I prefer that than the 1-seater. And then they said that, it would be safe, and there's 4 guides, that take you. So I'm not afraid of the dark. At least I didn't think I was until I did this. So they said that there's 4 guides. Each guide has a flashlight around their necklace or thing that they're wearing, their vest. And then each kayak, on the front and the end of it, there's a very dim light bulb. You know, you can call it a light bulb. So I thought, okay, this is cool. I can handle this. So we got there. We decided who's going to go. They paired us up. They said the stronger person goes in the back. Now, at first, I thought Tommy and I would split it up, and he can go with one girl, and I can go with the other. But they wanted to go on their own. And so, again, family-friendly, safe, 5 years and up. We said, okay, you guys go on your own, and Tommy came with me. And, of course, he's going to sit in the back. He's done kayaking before. I've done it once before, but it was during the day, right? But I said I can do this. I can handle this. So they gave us instructions. Now, we didn't get on our kayaks yet. So they give us instructions, and they tell us, okay, it's going to take about 45 minutes to get to the actual bay. We're going to go through a mangrove. It's a canal, and we're going to go through that. They said, stay together. You're going to follow the kayak, in front of you. And I'm looking, and I'm like, okay, we're like right about the middle. So we're good. We're covered here. And so my first disappointment came that once we got into the kayak, and there were some steps that you had to take. Got into the kayak. We got there. They gave us your paddle. They said, okay, hold it this way. Gave us all our instructions. And then I noticed, like, wait, the kayak before us, they're like long gone. I'm like, wait a second. I thought we were going to do this together as a group. And so it was more like, keep up if you can. So I didn't like that. I didn't like that one bit. So I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, sweetheart, we got to hurry up. They're all the way over there. Let's hurry up. Let's do this. So we get on the kayak, and the first bay, because it's like several different bays there, the first one is like open waters, and there's different boats docked around there. So you kind of have to maneuver your way around these boats and their anchors and all this. So I'm like, okay, this is different, but okay. So again, I'm fixing my eyes on that one little light, the kayak that was in front of us, and he's like way ahead. It was actually my cousins, and they're way ahead. And so I'm saying, okay, hurry up, hurry up. Once we get there, once we actually get to that mangrove area, I want to show you what it looked like for me. So you have that slide where it's just, yeah. That's what it looked like. That doesn't look like that picture, right, that you saw with the water glowing. No, that's more of what it looked like. And so instantly, fear crept in. And I was like, what in the world did I get myself into here? So I thought I wasn't scared of the dark. Now I'm scared. I'm scared because I can't see anything. I barely see this like little light up ahead. And so I started to panic, and I worried. And Tommy was so calm, and he's just like, don't worry, babe, I got this. Don't worry. So I was like, all right, he's got it. I'll figure this out. So he's telling me, and then I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do? I'm sitting in the car. What do I need to do? And so he's like, go left. And I'm like, okay, that's my left. Okay, no, this is my left. And I'm fumbling. I'm just like, so he's telling me, go left, go right, go left. And I'm just, okay. And then we're splashing water everywhere. And so, I have glasses on. I'm getting water in my glasses. I don't have wipers on my glasses. So it wasn't good, and I was afraid if I lose my glasses, this is not going to be good. So I'm just I can't figure this out, and when you're in panic mode, it's really hard to concentrate on what you need to. So I'm in panic mode. I really wanted to help him. He did most of the work. Now, when they had given us instructions, right, on paddling and what to do, they did tell us that they would give us directives as we, go along, and that we have to stay to the right because there's other kayakers there and other companies that are there. And so at one point, right, can't see anything, and I hear somebody yell, "Stay to the right! Stay to the right!" It's dark. How do you know if you're left or right? I'm just like, what in the world? Okay, did you hear that? We got to stay to the right. We're trying to figure this out. Then I hear voices, and these are like some ladies or girls. They're laughing, having a good time. I can't see them, but I hear them. And next thing I know, we crashed into them. So now I went from being scared, I'm mad now. I am really mad because you guys told me that this was family friendly. This is dangerous out here. These are dangerous waters. I cannot believe that you said 5 years old and up can do this because I'm like 40 something and I'm like barely holding on here. So we're out there, we crashed, we're trying to figure out, okay, where are we now? Because you kind of like lose your focus there, trying to figure out, where we're at. And so Tommy's like, okay, don't worry, I got this, we'll figure it out. I see them, and we're actually getting closer, and I think they're having a harder time, so we're kind of catching up to each other. But I was mad because I said their kayak didn't have any lights on it, and their vest had no lights on it. So I'm like, what company is that you don't keep your own customers safe? So anyways, I was upset now. So we managed to fix ourselves. We're going straight this time, but now I get stuck. We get stuck, and I almost fell out of my boat, and we got stuck because of the hanging branches, right? And it got stuck on my vest. So I'm like panicking because I don't want to fall out because I can't see anything. I don't want to fall out. He kind of helps me, and then I'm trying to hold on to the paddle so that I don't lose my paddle either. And then I realized, like, man, in this mangrove area, you've got a lot of, branches that are hanging. One of them could have poked my eye. So I'm like, okay, Tommy, I want to go home. But not just like home to our condo. I want to go home back to Tampa, Florida. I don't like this. I totally regret this. I want to get out of here so bad. So it seemed like it took forever. We finally made it to the bioluminescent bay out there. No, it wasn't glowing in the dark, but they had warned us. It was a full moon that day. And so we got discounted tickets, which is perfect. But the reason is because it's a full moon, then you can't really see the microorganisms that are glowing in the dark. But if you put your hand in the water, then you can see it. But I have to admit that once we got there back to the open waters where it was safe, it really was beautiful. And it was so peaceful. It was so quiet. It was so peaceful. And the full moon was beautiful, and the moonlight was just like shimmering in the water. There was glistening in the water. It really was beautiful. So this is where they did line us up, all the canoes there. They lined us up together. That was like an ordeal for me to get there because I'm like, we're trying to paddle and they're yelling reverse stroke, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. So we managed to line ourselves up, and of course they helped us do that. So they give us further instructions once we got there, and the instructions were, basically, now you can, see the water glowing. We had to put tarps over so that we can actually see it. But now you can see the water glowing. But make sure that you catch your breath and you rest while you're out here, because if you thought that getting here was hard, it's going to be even harder getting back. And I thought, what? How in the world is that possible? And they said, because now when we go back, you're actually going against the current. Well, I thought we already were. You mean to tell me it took 45 minutes to get here, and now 45 minutes back against the current? Okay, so something snapped in me at this point, and I went into survival mode. Again, for me, this was like life and death. I wanted dry land again. I should have stayed with my cousins that stayed behind. And I regretted doing this excursion. I don't care about the glow-in-the-dark waters. I don't care what color they glow either. So I said, Tommy, what do I need to do? Teach me how I need to do this the right way. Because I know because I've seen it on TV, that when you go in unison, right, you go a lot faster. Because I'm thinking like 45 minutes, can we shave that half time here? So what do I need to do? Teach me so that I can do this right. I knew I wasn't doing it right. I was just fumbling. So he starts to teach me, and he, let me know where I have to hold this. And he said that when I paddle, I'm not just going like this. I have to go into the water. Now, what I was doing before was I kept doing this, like right, left, and I would look, right? He said, keep your eyes straight ahead and then just with your hands. So I'm like, okay. And what happens is it kind of turns into, you're kind of rowing, but it's more in unison here, especially when you're doing it together. So I said, okay. And what's that reverse stroke thing? He said, you go backwards. And I said, okay, so that's what that is. All right. So I said, I think we got this. We practiced a little bit while I'm there. And I said, we're going home. We are going home, okay? I am not staying here. We are going home. And we're going to do this. So once we got back into, and they whistled and said, okay, everybody back. We're going now. This is the craziest thing. So once we get back into that canal area, it was like, and I want to say that it was divine intervention here, because I was able to see just a little bit better. I couldn't see totally, right? It wasn't pitch dark anymore for me, but I can kind of make out a couple of things. And I don't know if maybe my eyes adjusted, but I prefer to say that it was divine intervention and that God allowed me to see some things up ahead so that now we can work together, my husband and I, and get out of there, right? So once we get into the canal area, I turned into Drill Sergeant Lucy. And I said, sweetheart, I got you this time. No, I said, sweetheart, we got this. We're going to do this together. I can see. And so we just start going. And I'm the one that's yelling out, because before he had to tell me where to go. And I'm like, how can you see? You're behind me. But he could. And so I was just like, left, right, left. And then I was like, 2 lefts, 2 rights. Hard left, incoming. Like, I was just like, I'm telling you, I was like, drill sergeant here. I'm not playing. I'm getting back home. And so this is the other crazy part to this, was there was several times that we actually glided. It was like seamless, like it didn't take that much effort. It was hard, don't get me wrong. We felt the current. We felt it trying to push us in a different direction. So when we were actually paddling, it was even harder than getting there. You really had to hold your paddle and push with all your might. So I was really tired. I felt drained. I don't have that much upper body strength like he does. So I was using everything that I could. So it was definitely much harder, but easier at the same time, if you can believe that. And it was easier because we were able to paddle together in the same direction, right? We're not hitting each other's paddles. There was less water splashing happening, right? And I think I got my groove. Let me put this over here. So I kind of got my groove, and I got the hang of it. And it was better once we were doing it together. And so I think for us, life can be like that at times, especially on our walk with Christ, where we are just fumbling and we can't see ahead. We can't see what's happening, and we're just like, I don't know what to do next. And we go in panic mode. And when you're in panic mode, you can't concentrate and you can't do things right. But I decided at that point, again, for me, I felt it was like life and death. And I felt like I am not staying here. I need to get out of here. What do I need to do? Teach me, show me, what do I need to do so that we can get out of here safely and together without my eyes getting poked out. But consistent abiding yields the power to overcome. Consistent abiding yields the power to overcome, to conquer. See, I remained in my position. I could have probably gotten out if I wanted to and swam. That's, for me, even more work. But I stayed there, and I made a conscious choice that, what? He knows what he's doing. Let me learn from him what I need to do. And so we became a team at that point. And what happens is when you become a team with God, God gives you the wisdom that you need, the stamina that you need, the endurance that you need. He gives you the power that you need to overcome these strong currents that are coming against you in your life. He gives you the power, because I know everyone in here, you have some strong currents happening right now in your life, and they're just swaying you and pushing you in different directions. And your strong currents, it might be financial, it might be debt, it might be relationship issues, it might be job issues, but you have some strong currents, and consistency is the key. If you're not consistently abiding with God, then you're not going to have the power that you need to overcome these strong currents in your life. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, "Be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain." And I think sometimes when we look at abiding or spending time with God, it can seem like labor. It can seem like I don't have enough time, or I don't have the energy, or why should I? But I'm here to tell you that you can't afford not to abide with God. You can't afford not to spend time with God, because He is all that you need. He is everything that you need for your marriage, for your job, for raising your kids. He is everything that you need. And so we can't afford not to spend time with God. So consistency is key to learning and overcoming those strong currents in our lives. So there's 3 things that I'm going to go over with you real quick. And the first one that I want to share with you is communion. So when you are consistently abiding with God, it creates communion between you and God. And I'm not talking about the sacrament of communion. I'm talking about the sacrament of presence. The sacrament of presence with God, spending time with God on a regular basis. So the deepest level of communication is not communication, it's communion with God. That's the deepest level. So this is a time with God that you hear and you feel His heart. He speaks to you. It's almost like you become one at that moment, and there's an understanding that you know can only come from Him and not from yourself. It's a deep self-awareness of who God is in your life. However, right, Ephesians 6 is very clear to tell us that we have an enemy. And this enemy wants to separate you from God. He wants to make sure that you have no communication and no communion with God. Ephesians 6 says that there are evil rulers and principalities in the spiritual world that we cannot see. Just like when I was in that kayak and I couldn't see up ahead. I couldn't see anything, but I knew after our first mishap there that there was danger, possible danger up ahead. And our enemy comes to, he seeks to steal, to kill, and destroy anyone that's bearing the image of God. That's one of his number one tactics, to make sure that we're not able to communicate and have communion with God. What's the smartest thing that an armed force can do when they're in a state of war? Huh? Band together. But it's communication. If he can knock off their communication, if he can destroy their communication, then guess what? They don't know what's next. They don't know what's happening. They won't have, the victory, because they don't have communication between the commanding force and their troops. So communication is lost. Guess what? You don't know what your next move is. So the enemy wants to keep you in a haze of confusion. He wants to make sure, hey, I'm gonna cut that off. I'm gonna find a way to do that so that you don't know what your next move is. But we also know that he's a liar, right? He's the father of lies. But for a lie to work, it takes 2 people. The person who speaks it and the person who believes it. In order for a lie to work in your life, it takes 2 people. The person who speaks it and the person who believes it. It has no power unless you believe it. A lie from the enemy has no power over your life unless you believe it. And so you have to understand that if he's the father of lies, he will put those lies out there and make you believe something that is false information. So for me, on the kayak, I knew at that moment, I have the strength of God. He will help me because God is for me. He's with me. He's in me. Therefore, if that's the case, therefore, no mangrove formed against me shall prosper. Right? That's the truth. That is the truth. So I was empowered and I did what I had to do at that moment. The more that you consistently abide in God, the less that you believe the lies of the enemy. But in order, right, to have that power to overcome, you have to consistently be abiding with God. The more you do that, the less lies. The more you do that, so the more truth, less lies. The more truth, less lies. More truth, less lies in your life. So our ability to endure our trials depends on our ability to abide in God's presence. Our ability to endure our trials depends on our ability to abide in God's presence. The second thing is peace. Peace. And so we've all heard the peace that passes all understanding, a peace that no one else can give. But I do know in here that we struggle sometimes to have that peace of heart and that peace of mind. Yet it's a gift that Jesus offers to each and every one of us. He says, peace I leave with you. So worry replaced by prayer equals the peace of God. And I know each and every one of us, we worry in here. We worry for our kids' safety. We worry for our own safety. We worry about our future. We worry our jobs. Are they stable? Is it secure? About our finances. There are so many things that we worry about in this life. Yet God says, I came to bring peace. Well, where is that peace when everything seems chaotic? Where is that peace when you can't see what's up ahead? And so I want to share, do a quick little exercise with you. So, first of all, the same amount of time that you spend worrying is the same amount of time that you can spend praying about that same situation, okay? So, quick example here is I want you guys to take a look around here, and I want you to count how many things are red. How many things are red? So I'll give you a couple of seconds. Look around. How many things are red in here? So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So look ahead. Look this way. Now, without looking around, no cheating, okay? Without looking around, stay your eyes focused up here. I want you to now recall how many things were yellow. You were looking for red. How many things were yellow? Don't look. No cheating. It's kind of hard, isn't it? Kind of hard. Well, guess what? The red and the yellow existed together. Red could represent everything that you worry about, everything that you have anxiety about, all your concerns. Yellow can represent the peace of God. It can represent the promises of God. And so they both exist at the same time. But you have to choose what you're going to focus on. So you can either choose to focus and affirm your worries, or you can choose and focus on your faith and the promises of God, but they both exist together. That's how we can have peace here on earth when everything else around us is so chaotic, because you have to change your perspective and figure out what you're going to focus on. So where your focus goes, your energy flows. So one of my scriptures for this year has been Psalm 91:1. The Lord is peace, right? Jehovah Shalom, the Lord is peace. So whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. And that's been my year of just abiding in God and resting in God in the midst of the conflict, in the midst of I can't see what's up ahead, in the midst of the strong currents that are coming against me. How do I do this, Lord? It's abiding in you. And when I abide in you and your shelter, then you give me rest. And in rest, then I can make better decisions. In rest, then I can go ahead and be the person that you've called me to be. That's how they both coexist together. The last one, 3, is identity. Identity. So abiding provides the opportunity for us to wrestle with what truly makes us significant. And I know you've probably heard it before if you've been in church. I've been fearfully and wonderfully made, right? I was created in God's image, and that's good and that's true. But this identity that I'm talking about, it's a deeper identity. It's a self-awareness of who you are. And the hard part is that we live in a world where you have so much marketing, promoting, selfies, social media, right? And what's happening is that's increasing our appetite for applause. It's increasing our appetite to get recognition from other people. And you all know that your friends are there one day and the next day they're not. One day they follow you, the next day they unfollow you, or they block you, or they just remove themselves totally from your life. But there's one person who will consistently always be there, and that's our Heavenly Father. The problem is that we blame God for things. We're the ones that don't show up for our appointment with Him. We're the ones that don't show up for our date, our meeting with Him, our time with Him, because we're so bombarded with everything else. Or we choose to focus on other things when the reality is all you need is an audience of one, which is Jesus Christ. All you need is an audience of one, yet we live in a world that's constantly promoting having a platform and having an audience that's following you. And all that's going to leave you is just frustrated and upset, and you're still trying to figure out what's happening with my life, and I don't know what to do next, and I'm so upset. Well, guess what? God is always there. So when you strip away all the external distractions of this world, then you become aware of your desire for God and His desire for you as well. So your desire for God and your capacity to connect with God as a human soul is the essence of who you are. That truly is the essence of who you are. When you're consistent, right? When you're more consistent with abiding, then you spend less time than comparing yourself to others as well. When you're constantly scrolling on your phone and you're filling your mind with a lot of information, it's going to limit your sanctification. So, sanctification can seem like a big word, and that is being set apart, is being made holy in His image. We're being purified. Purified from what? Purified from the toxicity of this world. Purified from the lies that the enemy has told you. So when you are aware of who you are, of all your unfinished parts, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you take that to God, He handles it with such gentle care. He handles you with such gentle care, and He points you in the right direction. So for believers, if you're not consistently spending time with God, you're going to go nowhere fast. Abiding is not about when it fits your schedule. Abiding is, I have to, because this is life and death out here. Abiding is, I'm going to because I know who God is. And so when I talk about identity and your identity with God, I'm sure that we are in here and we can say that, yes, God is love. But if God is love, then that means that you are love. And you are loving. And you're capable of loving as well. Because God is in you. And God is with you. And God is for you. So you are love as well. If God is life, and we say, God, you are life and you give me life. If that's the case, then you know what you are? You know who you are? Then you too are life. You are alive, and you can bring life to other people as well. If we say God and we sing God, you are able. You are able, God. If God is able and God lives in you and with you and in you, then that means that you are capable as well. You are capable of overcoming these strong currents in your life. You are capable of so much more than what you actually realize. But you have to abide consistently in His presence to know the essence of who you are. And the only way to get there is to know who he is intimately, to hear his heart and know his heart. And in doing that, you will know who you are as well. So I leave you with this last statement here, and that is that today's decisions foreshadow tomorrow's challenges and reflect yesterday's choices. Today's decisions foreshadow tomorrow's challenges and reflect yesterday's choices. I'd love for you guys to stand up with me. So the past couple of weeks, we've talked about abiding. We've given you some tools. We've given you some things that you can take, and we don't want it to just be information that we're giving you. We want it to really transform your lives, and we are walking and living witnesses of what God can do. But you have to take this information and you have to apply it to your lives. And I'll share real quick, I talked about this in the beginning, that it wasn't in my abiding moment then that God redirected me, because when Tommy first told me that I was going to share, he wanted me to share on abiding and in specific consistency, in my mind I had a completely different message. And I said, oh, this is good. I got this. I know what I want to share about. And about 2 weeks ago, in my prayer closet, I'm journaling. I'm spending time with God. I'm spending time in his word. And the word kayak came to mind out of nowhere. And I said, kayak? What is this about? And then I recalled our kayaking adventure that we did at nighttime. And at that moment, I realized he wants me to talk about kayaking. And so sometimes things don't make sense to us, because in my mind, that other message would have been a lot better. But he said, no, this is what I want you to share. Why? Because someone needed to hear this message. It's not just about kayaking. It truly is about your relationship with God and your obedience to abiding with God. So I believe that kayaking, right, is a lot like this adventure, and kayaking is a lot like our spiritual lives. There's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of strategy that goes into it. And our spiritual lives are around the same thing. So I realize that there's some of you in here today that you're sitting in a kayak, but you're sitting in a single person kayak. And you need to get out of that kayak and go into a two-person kayak. And there's some of you in here, you're sitting in a two-person kayak, but then my question to you is, who are you sitting with? Who's in the kayak with you? That makes a huge difference as to where you're going and your direction. Who's sitting in the kayak with you? So I want you to spend a couple moments right now, and I want you to think about the past couple of weeks as we've talked about abiding. I know that God has spoken to some of you, and it's been about either confirming, knowing that there's some changes that you need to make, things that you need to do in your life. You know, God has been tugging at your heart. God wants to do something in your life, and the only way to see that is when you're consistently abiding in him. So take a few moments right now. Think about, what is it that he's been telling you? What is it that you need to start doing? What is it? Maybe you need to pick up your paddle. You're sitting in it, but you're not picking up your paddle because you're waiting for God to do everything. God, I thank you so much for this opportunity and this time and this message. Because I know, Lord, I know the struggle. I know the difficulty at times to set time aside to just be with you. I know the challenge of realizing that we have a real enemy who's out to attack us. I pray, Father, that today serves a reminder of your power, your authority, the victory that we have. But I also pray, Lord, for those of us that are in here, that when we start abiding and spending time with you, that it's not about getting from you. I pray that when we spend time with you, it's not about the benefits. It's not about the resources that you offer, the promises that you offer, and that's great. But Lord, those things with the wrong motivation, they run out eventually. We're going to constantly be looking and striving when you just say, come to me, all who are weary and burdened. I pray that we come to you because of who you are. We come to you out of a deep love for you and honor. We come to you, Father, simply because we need you, and we can't do it on our own. It's not by might nor by power, but by your Spirit, says the Lord. Let us hold dearly to that, Father, and to the truth of your word and the promises of your word. In Jesus' name, amen and amen.